Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I'm Ryan Boland. Thank you all for joining me. So, I know you all know that I think it was last Sunday, the what is it? The Silicon Valley Bank, SVB for short, collapsed. Now, I'm for one who I am not an economist. I took a macroeconomics class when I was going to Bryan Stratton College some years ago. It was a course because I had to take that course because my major was in business, but I hated it, couldn't understand it, none of that. It wasn't until I began to start delving into politics in 2016 and became a conservative, and I started reading books on Thomas Sowell about economics that I started to get a general understanding. And then I also read some books by Paul McGuire, researcher Paul McGuire. I began to get a better understanding of what economics is. And so I'm like, I'm okay now. But still, economics is kind of tricky, right? However, I wanted to speak on this subject because, for one, a friend of mine requested that I do. She wanted my take on this. But in addition to that, I wanted to speak on this subject because I believe that there's a bigger picture going on here. There's a bigger picture going on here. And I think that these elites, for lack of a better word, are trying to push something nefarious here, but it has not been able to come into full fruition yet. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read you just a small portion of this article, and then I'm going to give you my detailed commentary on it. So let's get right into this. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation (FDIC) plans to try and auction off the Silicon Valley Bank (SVB), okay, for a second time, according to the Wall Street Journal, after the first attempt failed on Sunday. So clearly, this bank folded, okay, and now they're trying to auction it off. No one wants it, and can you blame them? Who would want to buy? Who would want it? Who would want to buy this place? Who would want to buy this bank? Come on now. Who would want to even put any money on there? It folded. What sense does that make? Let's go on. Silicon Valley Bank collapsed last week when panicked customers suddenly withdrew billions, get this now, billions of dollars after the bank announced a loss of approximately 1.8 billion from selling its investments in U.S. Treasuries and, get this now, mortgage-backed securities. I don't understand these banks that sell. They keep doing the same thing, keep making the same mistake. But is it a mistake? Is it a mistake? We'll go on. Ultimately, regulators shut SVB down, um, and the FDIC took control of the bank and said they would protect insured deposits. And I'm gonna stop right there. You guys can go to the description box and read the rest of that for yourself. Okay, rest of the article for yourself. But here's the deal: when I read this article and I read some other articles and I did some connections and so forth, I started thinking. The first thing that came to my mind was the Federal Reserve. Now, the Federal Reserve banking system came to my mind because this article that I just read to you, or at least a portion of the article I just read to you, mentions the Federal Reserve. And the other articles that I read from the Epoch Times also mentioned the Federal Reserve. And when I read that factual data, I thought to myself, that's the reason why. I believe that's the reason why we're having this kind of problem with this Silicon Valley Bank. Okay. Now, I can't put my finger on this, but I feel it. This is a gut feeling. Okay. This is a gut feeling based on what I've been reading down through the years about the Federal Reserve. I'll say this. The Federal Reserve Bank is not an American institution. It is a privately owned group of banks that are owned and controlled by people who are, for the most part, not even Americans. Okay. The Federal Reserve was made into law in 1913. Now, I believe that the president at the time that signed it into law was Woodrow Wilson, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He basically sold America out to the Federal Reserve banking system. Now, what some people might not know is that America, number one, America had their own banking system in the late 18th century, late 1800s. They had their own, I believe, privately owned bank in America, but it was mostly controlled by people within the country, not outside the country. The international banking families and the Rothschilds in particular have been trying to build a central bank in America for a long time. They have been trying to build a central bank in America for a long time. And several of the founding fathers, I believe Andrew Jackson was one of them, and I'm summarizing his words, basically said that if we allow a central bank to take over our country and take over our monetary system, we will find ourselves without any freedoms at all. Because these individual founders of America understood that if you allow an outside party to take control of your monetary system, you're in trouble. In fact, the Constitution states that it is Congress who has the right to create coins and create money and create coins and have control over our monetary system, basically, is what it said. So that's having control of the monetary system in this country is something that America, the American Congress, is supposed to have. But we got sold out. Now, what essentially happened in 1911, I believe, a group of bankers got together and they got together at a place called the Island of Jekyll. Jekyll Island, rather. That's what it's, Island of Jekyll. Jekyll Island. In 1911, they got together to this privately owned region called Jekyll Island. Now, when I read the name Jekyll, I couldn't help but think Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Because you have these two individual personalities, a good person and a bad person. And to me, this is what these bankers were. They pose as good. Hey, if we can bring a central bank in this country, it'll be all right. But these bankers were interested in controlling this country. So these bankers got together in 1911 and devised a plan to place a central bank in America. And in 1913 was the year that this plan was actually initiated and signed into law by, I believe, like I said earlier, former President Woodrow Wilson. Once that occurred, because it was done by stealth and deception, once that occurred, that was it for America. Now you had a banking system that controlled the printing of our money and they controlled inflation. Some researchers said that they controlled inflation, deflation, depressions, recessions, and whatever else economic jargon that goes on. Researchers state that the Federal Reserve banking system controls that. Now, let me say something too about the term Federal Reserve. The term Federal Reserve was given that name to deceive the people. It's actually a central bank. For example, China has a central bank. Russia has a central bank. A lot of these countries have central banks, okay? But they give them these names to deceive the people. The term Federal Reserve is just a name given to make the people of the country feel that this is part of the American government. It is not. We sold out, or rather, let's just put it like this. Our government sold us out to these privately owned banking systems. Now, Nathan Rothschild, I believe his name, Nathan Rothschild stated, and I'm paraphrasing his words, but some of you probably already know what he said. He said, and I'm paraphrasing his words, he said, it doesn't matter who's the leader or the president or the king. Give me control of their money and I will control the country. That's what he said. That's what the man said. And I'm paraphrasing his words, but that's essentially what he said. Read it, check it out, Nathan Rothschild. So now they have control of our monetary system. And ever since 1913, The value of the dollar has gone down. We had the Depression. I think the Depression took place in 1928, 1929, the Great Depression. And many critics believe that it was the Federal Reserve that caused that, to crash the system. Hey, I don't know, but this is what these researchers believe that occurred. They say they control the printing of our money. So they're the ones that the Federal Reserve prints our money out of nothing, out of thin air. They print money digitally. Okay. They print that money out of nothing. And then they loan that money to the Treasury Department in our country with interest. That way, America becomes indebted to these international banking families who don't even live in this country. So they basically control our economy. Now, I'm not saying that the Federal Reserve is the cause of these problems, but in my you know what? Let me take that back. In my opinion, I believe that the reason why our economy is so jacked up is because of the Federal Reserve. Okay, and I don't have time to go into the detail of that, but I believe that's the reason. And now you may be asking, what's the Silicon Valley Bank have to do with anything? Well, it's just a gut feeling. Like I said, it's a gut feeling. Because as I said in one of my 1 minute videos, what I see here also is a domino effect. This situation happened with Silicon Valley Bank. Everybody started pulling their money out, billions of dollars of money out, because they were scared, because the bank had basically invested all this money into what's also oftentimes called derivatives, risky investments. Why would you take money and it makes no sense. It makes no sense unless you put the Federal Reserve in there, then it makes sense. Now, somebody maybe say, well, why would they, but I'm going to get to that. Somebody will ask the question, why would they want to crash the system? But I'm going to get into that. Yeah, so that's the deal. That's what ended up happening, right? But here it's crazy. So, but I see a domino effect. Now that this happened to the Silicon Valley Bank, other banks may start following suit, start getting scared, and start refraining from loaning people money. So, according to one article I read, stated that President Biden got up and gave a speech and basically said in so many ways that the rest of you guys don't have to worry. Our economy is cool, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. That's what they always say. They always say that. President's been getting up saying that stuff for decades, and we still trillions of dollars in debt. Man, shut up. Shut up. But he says, cool, it's cool, you got to worry about nothing. It's all good. You ain't got to worry about nothing. But I don't believe that. But he gets up like a president's supposed to do and reassures the people that everything is okay. But let me sum this up this way. I believe that this is designed to crash the system, to take the value of the dollar and make it less and less and less, because the more money that the Federal Reserve prints, the less valuable our dollar becomes. And we get further and further into debt, because remember, the more money that the Treasury Department asks to borrow from the Federal Reserve, if that's going to be the case, the higher the interest. The higher the interest, the greater the debt. And guess who got to pay that debt? You and I. They ain't going to pay it. The politicians not going to pay it. We will with our taxes. So what happens? The cost of living goes up, which is nothing more than a hidden tax. This whole idea of the cost of living going up, that's a bunch of nonsense. I believe that's caused by the Federal Reserve to lessen the value of the dollar. Bunch of nonsense. But that's what I wanted to get. That's my take on this. I believe that this is going to have a domino effect. Hopefully I'm wrong. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to end this video on this. I believe God is in absolute sovereign control. And let me give you an example of that. We just moved out of our old location at our church. I'm the assistant pastor of our church. My pastor secured a loan, a significant loan. I'm not going to tell you how much, but secured a significant loan for a new building. he stated to the church, the congregation, that the person, the loan officer that gave him the loan was eager. She was happy, more happy than he was to secure the loan. And God worked it out. We was able to get the loan. It's tens of thousands of dollars a loan, but we was able to get it, right? Without any struggle at all, hardly. Now, you may be asking, what's the point? If in fact this situation with the Silicon Valley Bank closing is going to cause other banks to be nervous and not loan money to people, particularly people that may not have business, that may be trying to start businesses or whatever, God intervened just in time before this debacle took place. God worked it out where we were able to get that loan before this debacle took place. That's why I said that. Because it could have been even worse. It could have been worse. It could have been like, well, we don't want to do this. But see, God is a miracle worker. And we were able to secure that loan and get our new building. See, what God has for you is for you. Nothing and nobody can stop it, Federal Reserve or anybody, okay? But I wanted to say that that's what I think this situation is here. It's crazy. I hope things straighten up here. But yeah, this is a crazy situation here. But we got sold out, and now they control our money. Let me say this. At one point, America was backed by, we was pretty cool, because we could print this money, but as long as it was backed by gold, we was okay. But guess what? In 1971, I believe President Nixon took us off the gold standard. Well, actually, let me take that back. It was Franklin D. Roosevelt that started the process of taking us off the gold standard, and I believe that Nixon in 1971 completed it. So now we're depending on paper money to be valuable. That's another video all by itself to show you about that. But that's a bunch of nonsense. It's just paper money. It's not real. It's just paper. It's fiat currency. Fiat, how you want to pronounce it, is not real currency. But that's another story, and I'm not going to get into the details of that. But we no longer going to gold standard. So what? But at a drop of a hat, they can say, okay, this paper money is is not valuable anymore. Its value is given by the government, and that's it. That's why our faith needs to be in God or in a higher power rather than this paper money in the government. But that's what I wanted to say about that. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. God bless you all. See you again.